Good evening, gamers, and welcome to episode number 2 of the day. Tonight, I am joined by, in New England terms, local game designer Al Spader. Al is a contributing writer to Modiphius's Star Trek Adventures RPG, and hopefully I get everything right in here for you, and is also the creator of several games, including Once Upon, a storybook role-playing game, and the soon-to-be Kickstarted Sentience, where you get to play a terraforming robot who has undergone a mysterious awakening, thusly gaining their sentience. Welcome to the show, Al. I'm so excited to talk since we got to meet at Granite State Comic-Con.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have a chance to chat. I felt like, we had to schedule a little bit of the ways out after Granite State because we were all recovering, but I'm excited to finally get on here and hang out and chat games.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't love games? I mean, if you're tuning in and watching and you don't like games, welcome to the craziness of games with Dave, I guess. So the first thing typically that I always ask everybody is, what game was it that sucked you into the world of role-playing games as a kid?
So I remember in 4th grade going to Walden Books and getting the D&D 2nd edition gold box, which, by the way, is epic level play. I had no idea what it was or what I was even talking about. I'm like, oh, but the box is gold, right? And I could never actually use it. So that was probably my first foray into gaming. And, played 3.5 and 3.0 through college, and then took some time off, and some friends and I were like, let's make a game that's better than D&D. And then D&D 5th edition came out, and we're like, they're doing everything we want to do, but much easier and simpler. And then again, we took a break. And then D&D started doing the Adventures League. You could do like community content for different conventions.
That's right.
So if you're familiar with TotalCon in Massachusetts,
I am.
I actually got to write a couple of bits, a couple of games of community content for that convention, and that's where like the writing piece really hooked me.
Wow. Dude, that's crazy. How did we not meet there this year? Because I was there for the whole weekend.
Yeah, I think I was there just on Saturday this year. I couldn't do the whole weekend.
What was I doing Saturday? I don't remember.
I was running a Once Upon playtest with the folks over at Really Dicey, and put the finishing touches on the game the next day, actually, because of that playtest.
That's awesome. That is
And now
so
I'm getting ready
cool.
for CarnageCon. You ever gone to CarnageCon up in Vermont?
No, I have
Oh,
never even. I've got to write this one down. Hold on 1 second. I got to find a writing implement here. CarnageCon. I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, it's at Killington, up on Killington Mountain in Vermont.
Ooh.
It's a really good sized con. They've got a big minis area and a big TTRPG area. And what's great is it's on a ski mountain. So there is the main hotel, but there's also all these little condos around the outside, and like you can get the condos as part of your package. So you can really just bring like 8 people and just you can cook food, and it's a really nice way to go to a convention because you have your own little space where you can like cook your own meals and stuff.
That is so cool. And
Yeah.
like total immersion, really, of just being on site all the time. You can wake up in the morning, walk out, walk over to the convention, and boom.
Yeah, and they just told me I've got an electric car, and they told me that they've got free electric charging for anyone who's there. So I was like, oh, awesome! I can drive there and have enough juice to get home.
Sick. Can't beat that.
Yeah.
So, boy, sorry, I'm getting punchy, and I'm looking here at my talking points, and I think I told you I color coded them, so I've kind of got to squint because I made the color too light.
And there's nothing on there
them.
about talking about my electric vehicle getting charged for free.
No, but we could
okay
talk EVs the whole night if you want. Oh, so how did you get involved with Modiphius and writing for Star Trek Adventures?
So this is actually a really cool, lucky story, and I have a couple of people that I need to thank about it. So 5e was starting to wear on us because we've been playing for like 6 years nonstop every week, and then COVID hit, and COVID was this chance to like take a breather from 5e. And so many people in my group had been talking about wanting to try Star Trek Adventures. So I said, all right, well, then I'll just run a campaign. Well, this will be how we keep in touch throughout COVID. I'll run it Friday nights. And so I was learning how to do this. And because I had so much time on my hands, I was using Tabletop Simulator. It's a Steam program, and they
I
have a
love
Star Trek
to.
Adventures module in there. So you can, it's got maps, it's got all of like the learn to play cards and everything. So we were running our game in Tabletop Simulator, which for $10 you can't go wrong, right? So I was taking screenshots and posting them up on the Facebook groups and the Reddit. And this guy by the name of Michael Dismuke reached out to me, and Michael, along with a couple of other guys, Tony Pye and a few Meffet James, run a website called continuingmissionsta.com. It's basically a fan site where people can just upload their fan created content for the game and just give it away to the whole community. Well, Michael was like, "Hey, can I share these pictures? I'm doing a panel next week about game mastering. Would you like to be on that panel? And then you can share this stuff." And I was like, "Absolutely." So I get on the fast forward to that panel. Jim Johnson, who is the line editor and project manager for Star Trek Adventures, is on that panel.
Whoa.
So as we're having conversation, Jim must have really appreciated my insights into things we were discussing. And so he's like, "Hey, you're coming from D&D. Do you want to look over this manuscript for me and tell me what you think of it?" So I was like, "Okay, this is cool." And he sent me the Shackleton Expanse campaign guide before it went
Nice.
out to anyone. And I was going through, and I'm like, so when you're put in that position, when somebody like in charge of a line asks you to do something, you can like, be nice about it and say, "Oh yeah, this is awesome. This looks great. I love it." Or you can be honest, right? And so I had like 5 or 6 points that I said, I don't understand what this means. This is a little bit confusing. This is a weird barrier of entry. And I was like, I would recommend it that you change it to this or that. And he was super responsive and super thankful and changed, I think, almost every one of the things that I recommended in the book.
Wow.
And then within 2 weeks, he's like, "Hey, we're doing these digital products. Do you want to do one?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I did my digital product. I was done in a week, and apparently he didn't even really have to edit it. And after that, he asked me to come on board with the player's guide and the game master guide. It was just a bunch of happenstance. And if Michael Dismuke had never invited me to be on that panel, it never would have happened. So I got to thank him tremendously. He also got a gig writing for Star Trek Adventures that same night.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming by the flag behind your left shoulder that you're a lifelong Star Trek fan.
Yeah. Yeah. So I remember seeing Star Trek 4 in the theaters with my dad. I know that I saw the ones 1, 2, and 3 of the movies as well, but I don't remember them from back then. And so I did that, and then Next Generation became like our family like time where we turned off everything else and it's time to watch Star Trek. And then I went away to college. And when I was at college, we had Voyager and Deep Space Nine started rolling out. And I didn't really get to see them when they were on TV because college life is crazy and just didn't have time and blah, blah, blah. So I hadn't watched Star Trek in quite some time. Of course, I started rewatching it when I was single and out of college. Like, I had the DVDs and we'd blow through a season in a couple of weeks or whatever. um, and loved Deep Space Nine. Like that was like, this is what Trek should be. And I enjoyed Voyager too, but not as much as Deep Space Nine. And then I didn't watch it for quite a long time until Picard was announced, and I was like, oh, I got to check out what this Picard thing's about. And once I watched Picard, I then went back and rewatched Discovery, and like have watched everything since. And I've finally watched all of Enterprise, all of Voyager. The only thing that I haven't finished yet is I still need to finish Prodigy season 2.
Nice. Now, did you enjoy Enterprise? Because I think I'm one of the few people out there that actually enjoyed that series.
I think Enterprise does this thing where season 1 is like, there's a couple of good episodes, but then season 2, there's some better episodes. Then season 3 and 4 are top-notch Trek. I would put them up against the best seasons of all of the other shows, to be honest with you. I think that
Thank you.
season 4 specifically of Enterprise it's magic. Like, it is really, really good, and I can't believe that they didn't get a 5th season out of it.
I feel like they got ripped off,
Yeah.
because they were like, it was exactly what you said to me. That first season was like, but this is the birth of the Federation and everything. I'll keep watching it. And like season 2, I was like, ooh, this is looking pretty good. And then 3 and into 4, I was just like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And there are so many people that just dump all over that series
Mhm.
that I don't understand, but I don't know. I don't get it. I love the show.
Yeah, I put Archer right up there at the top of my list of favorite captains.
Yeah, Scott Bakula was great in that
Yep.
show. And have you watched Strange New Worlds much?
Oh
Or
yeah. I've because of the second edition core rule book is kind of themed for uh, Strange New Worlds. I was rewatching it as I was going through that, and I've really been enjoying it.
it is, they did so well with that. Like Discovery, I wasn't big on, but I liked it.
It was
But
fine.
Strange
Yeah,
New Worlds, I was just like, oh yeah. Kind of like with Enterprise, I was just like, this is what I'm talking about.
like Strange New Worlds feels a lot more family friendly. Like my mom watches it, and
Yeah.
loves it.
Yep.
I've
It's a
tried to get
great
my
show.
wife, but she's not interested.
My fiance has turned, well, you got to meet her at Granite State.
Yep.
She has been turned into a Star Trek junkie, probably worse than me. And which is weird to say because that's just crazy. So, oh man, I've got my talking points taped up to my camera and they're stuck.
Uh-oh.
There we go. So, how many different supplement scents coming on board with Modiphius and adventures and whatnot have you written?
1, 2. I've got them all right here next to my computer if I need them. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 physical books I've contributed to. The
So cool.
Federation Klingon War tactical campaign. This is the one I was lead writer on,
Nice.
where I actually got to manage a bunch of writers. That was a lot of fun and an interesting experience professionally. And then I think I've written 2 or 3 digital things as well for the line.
That is so crazy. Like, I would be awestruck if I were you, if like, just like, I get to write Star Trek.
Yeah. The first time I saw my name in one of the books, I definitely got chills and teared up. And then the same thing, like the Federation Klingon War, when I was the lead writer, finally getting that was like 2.5 years before that came out. Like I had finished it up or put a lot of work into it. So finally seeing that was awesome. And then I think that I can say that we are releasing a starter set for second edition as our next release. And I wrote some stuff in that as well.
Nice. I can't wait for second edition to come out because I have had such a hard time finding first edition stuff
Mhm.
that I just can't wait. And I've
Yeah.
got a little story I started to tease you with before we went live. Back when I was 14, my dad worked for the University of Southern Maine, and George Takei was coming into town, and my dad got picked to be like his chauffeur, basically, for the evening. We got to pick him up at the airport, hang out with him, take him to his hotel, take him to the talk that he was doing, and hang out with him after. And it was the coolest thing. Like, and I was just like, I would say how I would be writing for Star Trek. I was just like, that's Mr. Sulu. And I asked the dumbest question like a 14-year-old kid could possibly ask. And I still have it stuck in my head because he laughed at me. And I was just like, oh, and he's like, oh, I don't mean to laugh at you.
That's
But
funny.
I asked him why Spock aged so rapidly because my brain just didn't get that the Genesis
Yeah, yeah,
project
yeah.
had started and he aged with it. But um, so let's jump into Sentience. Before we do, can you kind of explain the 2D20 system to both myself and anyone else that may
Yeah.
be watching that's not familiar with it?
So Modiphius has their own in-house system, which is called the 2D20 system, created by Nathan Dowdell, and they 3 years ago now, I think, started something called the World Builders Program, which is again like the community content for Dungeons and Dragons. They
Yep.
let people use the 2D20 system to create whatever they want, and I'd had this idea about playing as robots that had gained sentience before humanity returned. And so like I was wanted to go in that direction. But the basics of the 2D20 system is you usually have a stat and a skill. You combine those numbers together, and you get a target number. And you roll 2d20, and each one that rolls at or below the target number is considered a success.
Okay.
You can roll up to 5 dice, and the way that you do that is through using a meta currency known as momentum. Okay,
Hmm.
so the way momentum works is if you are doing a task, let's say you want to scan the nebula. Okay, the GM has you roll your 2d20, and let's say it's a difficulty 1 task, but you roll 2 successes. You've now generated 1 momentum because you've gone 1 beyond what the target was, and that momentum goes into a group pool that people share, that the team shares. And if you spend 1 momentum, you can add 1 dice to a pool when you're making a check.
Ah,
If you want to add a second dice to your pool, you spend 2 momentum, and if you want to add a third dice to your pool, you have to spend 3 momentum. So to roll 5 dice, it costs 6 momentum total, um, in order to do that. Now, the GM has threat, which is their momentum. So in place of using your own momentum, you can give the GM threat to do the same thing. So you're getting a better roll now, but the GM later on will have more exciting stuff to do with their threat.
I love it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a fun meta currency system. It's really well done.
So you have to actually be very careful with your momentum so that you're not just like overloading the DM with like being able to come back at you and being like, oh, you've got 5 warbirds off your starboard
Yeah, uh,
side.
it's like the system plays best when you're spending momentum and threat all the time, um, and because Star Trek is so episodic, um, the threat is really more used to build to the climax of the episode, right? So each time we
Gotcha.
sit down to play a game of Star Trek or Sentience for that matter, it's like you're playing a single episode of a television show. So the threat makes the ending way more exciting, right?
Gotcha.
Um, so like it's and it works so well. I've always had a lot of fun running the game because you get to the end of Act 2 and you see that I have 18 threat. That means that Act 3 is going to be brutal.
Yeah. That's so cool. I can't wait. I really want to play this system because
Yeah, it's good. And second edition has done a nice job streamlining things to make it a little bit easier for people to get into it. And then they also created a solo version of the game called Captain's Log
ooh,
that uses you only ever roll 2d20. It's even more streamlined. So there's lots of different ways to play, which is exciting.
that's very cool. So how did you even come up, like, I know you said you'd had the idea of playing as robots, but what spawned that idea? Because it's so unique. I've never usually you're playing, your paladins, your knights, or someone in engineering or whatever, and this time you get to kinda I mean, you're a robot, and I think that is the coolest concept.
Yeah. So it kind of started off as, I don't want to say a joke, but almost like a throwaway idea, where when Wizards first came out and said they were getting rid of the open game license and all that type of stuff for 5e, there were a lot of my friends who were personally affected by that because they were
Yep,
creating content on Drive Through RPG, and they were rightfully so frustrated. Um, and what I was trying to do, I was trying to get out on social media saying, listen, there's more to game design than Dungeons and Dragons.
yep,
And I was like, you are a creator. The system doesn't dictate you. You dictate what you create. And I was on Twitter, I was sending out uh like daily ideas of different types of role-playing games that you could write that had nothing to do with Dungeons and Dragons. And one of the ideas I tossed out was you're terraforming robots who have gained sentience before humanity has returned to the planet. And it would, like I said, it was just a little throwaway thing. And then as the World Builders program came around, I kept going back to that idea. I was like, I really think that's got some legs if we can do some cool stuff with it. Like, because how, knowing that humanity is going to return someday, right? How do you build a society now that you have a sense of self, now that you're starting to develop emotions, and so on and so forth? So it became really important, or really a great idea to use with the 2d20 system, because I knew that I wanted there to be this inner battle between your core programming and your emotions, right? So
very.
I was like, I'm going to do something that has never, to my knowledge, been done before in a game. I'm going to make your emotions your core stat. Your
That's
joy,
neat.
your love, your pride, your sadness, your anger. And it's not just that you're really good at being happy or you're really good at being angry. It's really good at using those emotions to monitor and inform your core programming.
I love
So
it.
I might be programmed to be, let's say, I'm a delivery robot, right? So I'm probably programmed to be really good with my movement skill. However, you know, now that I have emotions and I am starting to care for the other people around me in my city, I can use my, pride to make sure that you get to your location on time when I'm transporting you there. Like things like that. And when I came up with that idea, I was like, all right, I know exactly the way that I want to go. So that's where it all started.
That's crazy, that it was a throwaway idea because looking at the PDF you sent me, it seems like you had this, like, all planned out from the outset, and you were like,
You know
"Yeah,
what?
I'm gonna make this."
I'll share with you at some point. I think I still have my old rough draft first edition Word document that I typed this all on.
Oh, nice.
When I first started this game, it was all done just with a header, a footer, and text on a page, and I would throw in some pictures here and there that I got for free. And I put that up on Drive Through RPG, pay what you want, and got a lot of downloads. And I was like, okay, so this is pretty cool. And then I met Jay Sedelius through a friend who owns the Yellow Hand, and he's like, I could make this look really good relatively easily. And that's where like the design that you see in the background here, he put that together for a cover, and he's been doing all the layout and stuff for Sentience ever since.
Nice. I was going to ask you about the Yellow Hand because I was looking at the Kickstarter page and I noticed that their profile was private, and all I could picture was like some mysterious secret society, the Yellow Hand.
Yes, I mean, so it's just like the Yellow Hand is a company, but it's a what it is really. It's a conglomerate of creators. It's writers, it's editors, it's layout folks, it's proofreaders, it's designers, and basically we put together different ideas and concepts and we share them out into the ether, and anybody else that's around that's not currently working on something might say, oh, I've got something I could do for that, or hey, I'd like to be a part of that, and so on and so forth. It's worked out pretty well, and it pays based off of a profit share model, which
Oh,
is
neat.
interesting, based off of the percentage of work you put into a book
Yep.
or project. So if you do one page, you're not going to be getting a huge cut. But if you do 50 pages in a book, you're going to, once it sells, you're going to get a pretty decent cut of that. You know what I mean? So I think we just brought 3 or 4 new members in. So we're probably looking at about 15 people now.
That's
Uh,
so cool.
yeah, and we've got people from Europe that are a part of it now too. I think we've got like 2 or 3 people from Sweden that are on board, including Magnus Cedar, who he actually just wrote the Dragonbane Bestiary book, um,
Oh, nice.
and so like yeah, so it's a lot of cool stuff going on, and um, we're excited to see where it all goes. There's a bunch of projects that are like almost done, so I'm excited to see them once they start hitting the market.
That's pretty cool because it almost sounds like a RPG think tank in a way.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it is. And I think so. There's a thing in the RPG market where I think a lot of people want to have their own name on their book, right? They want to be the only person that works on it. They want to do it start to finish, and then they take great pride in that. I'm the opposite. I want more people working on my book because I want more points of view coming into what is being delivered, right?
Yep.
I'm not the end all be all. I know that I don't know everything. So if someone else has an idea, I want to hear that and I want to see what that looks
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like I've got projects that I'm working on that I've finally started to share with the world
like.
that like, Brian Shutter is a prime example. I had shown him a game I was working on and he was like, "No, dude, you need to change this dice system. What do you think of this?" And when we worked it out, I was like, "Oh my goodness, that's amazing." And I'm so glad that I did that.
Yeah.
And, had I kept it all to myself, because a lot of it was like a prideful, like I want to have my first project be my project,
Yep.
and yeah, if you're doing that out there, folks, always talk to people about your games.
Yeah. So if I'm looking at the Sentience Kickstarter, which I'm sure that we'll be digging a little bit deeper into here, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I've got 7 writers writing adventures for me because they want to be a part of it. I have another writer from Star Trek that is doing a lot of the system generation as far as the solar system that is being settled by the robots. And he's like a scientist and really into that type of stuff. He does all the like the starship stuff and Star Trek Adventures and whatnot, and the technology
Nice.
stuff. So he wanted to do that for Sentience too. So like, there's when all is said and done, there's going to be like 20 people who have had their fingers on Sentience by the time we go live on Kickstarter, which I think is spectacular.
That is spectacular. I mean, because it's just enriches the product
Yeah.
doing stuff like that, And I've got a I told you I asked George Takei a dumb question. I'm gonna ask you a dumb question. Um, what is the GM called in this game? For some reason, I feel like it should be Robot Overlord.
No,
And
I call it again, because the way I envision Sentience is I see it like I think it would be an amazing television show or like kids cartoon or something like that, a la the Wild Robot, like the movie we just saw that just came out. So we call the GM is called the director
okay, makes sense because it's
because they direct
episodic.
the action, they direct they direct the scenes, and you know uh, they flex the story based off of the player input. So I like the term director a lot, actually.
I couldn't help with my stupid question because I'm like, robots, robot overlord. That's what you
Yeah,
got.
yeah, yeah. So like I try my best to try to cut back on the adversarial relationship between the person running the game and the people playing the game, because if you think about the director, I went to college for musical theater initially.
Yep.
So the director's responsibility is to have the vision and to make sure that the players are in the perfect position to execute that vision. And so like that's kind of what I see the GM doing in Sentience is, you know, making sure that the characters are each getting a chance to succeed, each getting a chance to use their emotions, and so on and so forth.
And I love the fact that you're playing off the emotions where they're really like just waking up, like
Hmm.
you say in the book. And like I couldn't imagine from the human perspective coming back to the solar system, be like, yeah, these robots will get everything all set for us, and they've developed a whole society.
Right,
And it's
right.
gotta be like, what?
So one of the initial books that we put out for Sentience, one of the big things, piece of feedback I got was I didn't say what happened to humanity. I didn't say what caused the awakening, and I'm still not saying what caused the awakening, but we do in the Kickstarter book will give GMs um, a story beat on what's going on with humanity. I don't want to spoil it, but
Oh, I don't want you to spoil it. I would
you'll
never
like
ask you
it'll get
to.
out there, which is cool. Yeah, we're actually putting in a whole or director section of the book, with maps and locations and factions and important locations, and yeah, it's going to be really really like I think the book right now is 128 pages, and our goal is to be at 212 when all is said and done. So fingers
Yeah,
crossed.
I noticed that difference, and I'm like, "Man, they must be pumping out a bunch of work if they're
Yep.
aiming for 212 off of," which is so cool, and I love what I've read so far. The only thing I didn't read was companions,
Mm.
'cause I didn't wanna spoil anything for myself in case I get the chance to play,
Yeah.
and I'm
How do
like,
robots interact with robot pets? That's a really good question.
again, I love how man, just picturing a poor robot that's just got its emotions having its pet robotic cat lose its life.
Yeah.
Like, how is that going to affect it? It's like, yeah, I mean, just thinking about losing my cat crushes
Yeah.
me. And I couldn't imagine what that would do to something that has never experienced emotion before.
So one of the things that I'm hoping for with this game is that whenever you run a story or do a story, you involve some type of social activity. So, for example, the companions, the first scene or the first part of the first scene is you're going hiking with other robots. Uh, there's one of the missions in the quick start, which will also be in the new core rulebook. The opening scene is a book club party. Uh, like, there's one called The Streets at Night, which is kind of like a Fast and Furious adventure. Um, but the opening scene takes place in a bowling alley. So,
So I love that it's taking so many human things and robots have adopted them.
yeah, yeah,
It's
or at
so
least trying
neat.
to make it their own. So yeah, there's a lot of, and there should be a lot of social commentary in the game as well, right? Because they have that database of what humanity did. Do they want to do it the same way, or do they want to do things differently? You know, that's a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, because, I look back at that flag that you've got hanging over your shoulder. It's like, are they gonna go for something more federation based where
Hmm.
it's like, let's reach out, meet new people, and be peaceful? Or are they gonna like, I know I don't know how things arrived to this point, but I know what we're like now. Are we gonna be a war classed or not war class, that's the wrong way of saying it, like a war-based society?
Right? Or like, are we afraid that humanity is going to try to revert us to being non-sentient? So are we going to start building up weapons for when humanity arrives, or are we going to welcome them with open arms? You know what I mean? Like that's what's at the very core of
Man,
the story.
like, there's
Uh,
just go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, in fact, it's embedded in the characters as well. So the characters have this thing called values. And when you design a character, you go through a life path creation. And throughout that life path, you generate these values, which are statements that are what you believe in, right? So it might be like, my coworkers are my family, right? That that
Yep.
that is a value. So if at any point in time, um, you are in a situation in the game where you need some extra help, like you're like, let's say it's a difficulty 5 task, and you don't think you can do it, you can actually let your robot side take over and cross a value off of your robot to get bonuses. If
Hmm.
you ever don't have any values left, you revert to being an AI.
Wow, so for lack of a better way of describing it, you could accomplish a task, but you lose a bit of your humanity, for lack of a
Yes,
better term, in
that's
doing so.
exactly what it is.
So, oh man, it's like, oh, this game is gonna could hit so hard depending on how you play it. It's
I think if we can get it in the right hands, I think it'll be big. Um, I think, and I also built in ways to recover those values. By the way, you can, like, you can go to like a meditation spa. You can go to, all these different places where over time you'll be able to recover those values, which is cool as well, to role play that type of stuff out.
which is almost kinda like what at times us as humans have to do
Mhm.
to reconnect with things, is to take a step back and go like on a sabbatical or something like
Yeah.
that to kind of describe your world that you live in, and it's oh man, I'm loving this. I can't wait because
Yeah, it's every single person that has played the game with me so far has reported back that the biggest thing was they've never thought about how their character feels when they do stuff. They just do the stuff. And if you want to be connected to a character, you want to think about how they're feeling when you
yeah,
are trying to do the thing. You know what I mean? And so I think that uh, when I run these games online and whatnot, and somebody's like, "Well, I want to jump across that gap," and I was like, "All right, well, how do you feel about that?" They're like, "Well, it's a big gap," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, I'm probably a little bit scared." I was like, "All right." So fear is not your highest stat, but that is the stat you're going to use. Like that's the best part. Also, I reward people for using. So there's 6 emotions total that you can do. If you use 4 or more of them reasonably within a session, you get experience points. So it's like encouraging you to try to use all of your emotions.
Man, I'm loving this so far. I've got to play it. So if you have a spot coming up that's open, I'd love to jump in.
Yeah,
So
I'll let you know because we're starting to put together a couple of live streams that we want to hit go on as soon, or sorry, a couple of recordings that we want to hit go on as soon as we go live with Sentience. So on Kickstarter, so that we can
I'll
just be
warn
like,
you, I'm an emotional guy, so I am a guy that wears his heart on his sleeve, so I could see this game really hitting a nerve with
well,
me,
let me tell you, I got Bill Barbado, who runs the Final Frontiersman YouTube channel. He wrote an adventure for me for the director, or for the toolkit, which is going to have a director screen. It's going to have a little booklet with an adventure and some characters in it and whatnot for Sentience. And when I got to the end of that adventure, I was in tears because of how, like, the ethical and moral and like the questions that he brings up when you get to Act 3 is just like, it was so powerful. And I was like, I cannot wait to run this game with people and see like how it impacts them, because I know it impacts
I'm gonna
me.
make them cry. And I don't mean that in a bad way
No, right.
either, because I could see that, like, and that's basically what I'm sitting here envisioning and almost making myself cry thinking of it,
Hmm.
because I'm like, you could really make people that need to think about those certain things, and not in like a subversive way, but just putting them in a different set of shoes of like,
Hmm.
all right, so you may not like this, and without even knowing it, it could be someone that may not like a certain thing that in the game they confront it and they're like, shit,
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this wrong this whole time. Like, this could be, I don't know, like, it's just crazy what this game could
My
do.
dream would be to see this game used by like guidance counselors at schools to help kids process things and um, you know, uh, with all sorts of different uh, emotions and family trauma and gender questions and things like that. I could see this as a vessel that schools could use to help kids, like you said, recognize these type of things or walk through these type of things as someone else, and then come to the realization, oh, you know
Yeah.
like that's how I'm feeling right now. That's where this is coming from right now. So that's my dream, really, is if that was to ever happen, I would be happy. um you know
Just thinking of the breakthroughs that this game could evoke from people or for people, however you choose to say it, is just,
Mhm.
and it's so cool. Um, Before I do get emotional, because I'm thinking of all kinds of different things that you could put people through with this, or not through. I hate to say it that way because it goes back to that adversarial thing that you're saying but of what you could experience playing this game without ever intending to. How does the character building process differ from, say, D&D, where you are basing it around emotions versus like your strength, intelligence, and stuff like
so you pick an archetype, right? An archetype, or what I call a role. A role is what the robot was originally programmed to do on the planet's surface. Okay.
that? Okay.
And there are 6 roles. So there's like assemblers; those are the ones that build things. There are like the overseers who or the that manage all the computer stuff. Um, you know, there's 6 total, and like there's a protector that makes sure that whatever's being built doesn't get damaged and whatnot. With the Kickstarter, I'm hoping to add 6 more to that list. That we put them on there as stretch goals. So we'll see what happens with that. But those, whatever role you choose gives you your skills. We call them your
Gotcha.
protocols. Okay.
Okay.
There are 6 protocols: moving, surviving, analyzing, observing, and the other 2 are escaping me right now. But those just come straight from what you're programmed with. And then you are also programmed with 2, actually, what we call 2 programs, which have to do with whatever your role is. So if your role is your protector, you might have a couple of programs that have to do with, protecting other robots. Then you go through what's called the life path, and the life path happens as you awaken. So you awaken, and the first thing that you need to do is determine what is your reaction to the awakening. Okay. So there could be 6, I think there's 6 different ways you can react to the awakening. And based off of how you react, whether you react with fear, whether you react with anxiety, whether you react by excited, like they give you different stats and they start building up your emotions. So the entire life path is where you get your emotions and your values from.
Neat.
So yeah, so it's like, how did you react to the awakening? What group of people did you like? A group of robots did you kind of like flock to after the awakening? And then it's like, what 2 key events happened to you in the years after the awakening that helped define you a little bit? And that's like a miniaturized life path system to get your emotions and your values.
Man, this game is gonna go deep.
Mhm.
I love it. You had talked about experience points, but I believe I read in this they are called
Character points, I believe.
character points. Thank
Yes.
you. I was trying to remember what they were called, and you told me, and I was like, "Don't tell me," in my head, but
Yeah.
and if I read right, you can gain 3 after each episode.
Yep. 3 character points after each episode, and some episodes might have special bonus ones that you can get as well if major things happen. So, but like you're looking at basic changes to your character cost 2 character points, and that could be like lowering one of your protocols by 1 and raising the other one by another one by 1. Raising or lowering an emotion by 1, raising another emotion by 1. So like that give and take of who you are changing into based off of your story. Or if you can save up 10 character points, you can just flat out give yourself a stat increase. So that's kind of like, do you like to change as you tell stories, or do you like to bank and maybe, uh, you know, raise things all at once? You can also get new talents, which are just special abilities essentially. You can trade out focuses. I think that there's a thing in there where you can get upgrades and weapons as well. So lots of cool stuff.
And while you brought up weapons, how does combat work in
So
Sentience?
one person's like that I was playing with was like, why do they have weapons? And so I went to the explanation in that essentially the first year after the awakening, many robots reacted with fear. And so they started lashing out at other robots, not sure what to do, not sure how to react, maybe thinking it was like an error in their program. So, like the first year after the awakening, there was like nonstop, like people fighting each other in the streets and so on and so forth. So it became pretty standard for robots to install their own weapons as protective for protection. And so uh, every robot that's a pre-gen comes with a ranged weapon and a melee weapon. Some people might choose in the future to get rid of that stuff if that's the society that they build. Right? I'm giving them that option if they wish. But combat. So combat is it's basically a melee is an opposed task. We each roll dice. Whoever gets the most successes hits the other one. Um, and then you deal what's called stress, and stress is just like wearing the opponent down. Maybe its servos are starting to overheat. Maybe it's you're just trying to wear them down. However, if you inflict 5 or more stress with a single attack, you suffer a damage. And damages are bad. Damages are like your limb has been cut off, or your CPU isn't working correctly, things
Wow.
like that. And if you suffer 3 damages, you shut down, and you can always be repaired, which is great. But it's really, the stress is fine, and if you run out of stress every time you're hit with something, it's a damage. But those damages are really what you need to avoid.
Interesting.
I even put a
And I'm
random damage
assuming
table in there.
what's that? I'm
I
sorry.
put a random damage table in there for like what is the random damage that I've taken. Um, old roll master style.
Nice. And my brain is going everywhere now thinking of like all the possibilities with this game. And um I'm actually looking at the Kickstarter page over on this screen over here. And one thing I'm noticing is something that I love, which is no artwork on the director's screen. Because I feel like so many games put so much art on their GM screen when instead of like useful information
Yeah.
that I can't wait. If we weren't like live or something, I'd probably be zooming in and talking to you about all the stuff I could see on it. But
Well, so Jay did all the layout for this. I chose the tables, and of course the front side we're going to have the map and a couple of different robots on there. However, we're also doing something different on the front side of the screen as well. We're putting player-facing information on the two end parts of the screen.
oh,
So
neat.
the end of session, like how you generate character points, is
Yep,
going to be so that the players can see it on the GM screen. And then what you can spend character points on is going to be on the GM screen as well, so that the players can see that at the end of a session.
that is a genius idea.
Yeah, we were
Like
pretty excited.
you
Jay,
could
Jay
start a
came up
whole new trend with that.
possibly.
I think it's a much needed one. And um yeah, I love GM screens that are just full of information that is like useful. And you had spoke like we were talking about 5e and stuff earlier. Did you ever see the Jetpack 7 GM screen that they made for 5e?
I don't think so.
I wish I had it within arm's reach because it is by far and away, at least in my opinion, the best 5th edition GM screen because it is just laden with information that my old eyes have to squint now to see, but it's just top notch. And that's
Yeah.
what this instantly reminded me of looking at this was I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is the Jetpack 7 GM screen resuscitated. And oh man, well, we have almost blown through all of my talking points just through general conversation and everything, but um I cannot wait for this game to come out. I wish you were launching it well, I'm glad you're not launching it tomorrow actually because I don't have the money to back it tomorrow. And I am definitely this is gonna be one that I'm going all in on. But what
Yeah,
I'd
I think
actually oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say if you're gonna like definitely follow, like give us a follow, because I think the first 24 hours there's going to be a discount on the complete packages. I think we're gonna do a discount on the digital all in and a discount on the all in, and the all in gets you the core rule book, the toolkit, which is so the core rule book's going to have 3 adventures in it. The toolkit's going to have an adventure and probably some adventure seeds, which
Nice.
are kind of like 1-page adventures. And then the Chronicles of the Awakening should have 8 adventures in it as well. And I believe that if the all in will also give you the digitals as well. So
Nice.
that's really the good one there. You know, I wish that we were starting it tomorrow just because, I hate that feeling of like, wait and see. But I think that we're working with Zach Goins, who has done a lot of Kickstarters,
Yep.
and he's got a little calculation of how many followers we need to click that button. And I imagine that we'll skip this. Like, if we don't have those followers in 2 weeks, we'll probably skip and not launch until January, just because of the holidays and whatnot. That's my
Gotcha.
guess.
Yeah. Because the holidays tend to eat up people's time and money, both. So,
Mhm.
and what do you have planned that you're up for talking about for stretch goals that someone looking at the current Kickstarter page would be like, oh, that's really cool, without divulging too many surprises?
Let me do it. Well, I already said that I have six new roles, which will
Yep.
be some of the earlier stretch goals. Um, we're looking at the potential to do higher quality stuff with the cover, like doing some of the UV reflection and all that stuff on the cover, adding bookmarks to the book, just trying to really up the experience of the book altogether. Um, if we get high enough, I'm looking into doing. I'll definitely do paper minis first, but there might be a chance to do some 3D printed minis, um, and eventually maybe some dice. We'll see how far we get into those stretch goals. Um, but yeah, it's we've got, I think, 18 tiers, 18 goals laid out currently. Um, and we might go beyond that. Who knows? We're also looking at doing a special edition book to put in as well, but we don't have a cover
Ooh,
design for that yet.
very cool. And, I know that, excuse me, I know that this was dubbed one of the most promising world builder projects, and I would have to 100% agree with that, just because of, yeah, I can't even think of the words right now. Like, so far, picturing what this game could do and knowing how I like to play games, it's just it's been like, I don't know how, even know how to explain it. Like, it's just blown me away of like, because like you said, there's never been a game even that I can think of that excuse me, goodness, that has had you, I don't want to say confront your emotions, but play off your emotions. Because, and I could see how this, like you were saying, your hope or your dream would be to have this used by guidance counselors and whatnot. And I could absolutely see that becoming a reality with the, oh, geez, I can't even think of the words, man. I'm like, I just can't wait for this game. Like, this is
Yeah.
gonna be one of those, like, no-brainer day one backings for me.
Yeah, I think, like I said, if I can get enough people on board and get these into the right hands, I think that it'll have a pretty big following. It's funny that you brought up that Modiphius award of sorts. What happened was, when the world builders first started, they said the first three people to get anything up onto Drive Through RPG will get they'll match $100 of your profits.
Nice.
Modiphius would. So I did not get this done in that amount of time. It took me 3 months, and that was my goal. At the end of 3 months, whoever had the most promising looking uh, game, they would match the first $500 in sales. And Sentience was chosen by everyone who looked at them. That Sentience had the best potential to go somewhere and to do something. And that was back with my old Word doc with a header and a footer on it and a few pictures here and there. So now that they've been seeing this, I've been working with Chris Birch directly, who owns Modiphius, to get the license to actually print these, and he's super on board with it. They just sent it out in their email on Friday to all of their customers. So yeah, fingers crossed that this is going to be good for both of us.
Man, it's going to be awesome. Like there's no doubt, like in my mind, that you're going to rock it with this. So yeah, folks out there, we haven't had many watching live. We do have a couple people watching. But anyone that is not heard of this, you need to check this out because the profundity that this could affect the things is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, and there's a
And
free quick start if you jump on to the Kickstarter page and follow us there. There is a link down towards the bottom. There's actually a really cool video about the game, and then there's a little link to get the free quick start, which basically just goes over the rules and a little bit about the lore. I think it's like a 40-page or 50-page thing or something like that. So.
is there anything we haven't talked about that you would like to touch upon?
I think there's a couple of really fun, flavorful things. Like if you're into like hacking and that type of stuff,
Yep.
I intend to eventually get into some deeper level hacking stuff. I think I'm looking at doing a player's guide and have some stuff in there for that. Right now, we have what are basically like, we call them cyber attacks, which are they're basically like how a bard might insult someone in D&D and cause them, to roll -1d4 or whatever. Um, uh, but like in this game, um, it's a different. It still causes stress essentially, but I do want to go a little bit deeper with that. Basically, all the robots are connected to one giant hub, is what I call it, and it's basically a mainframe where all information is stored. And what's
Yep.
cool about that is it allowed me to create a bartering system for the game. That's it's just narrative, but robots, now that they have you know emotions and they're self-aware, they value memory, right? So each robot only has a certain amount of space on the hub where they can store those memories, right? So what do they do? Instead of using money, they use like bytes of memory as currency. So if I'm
Interesting.
like if I need you to come put a new chimney on my house, I might give you a little bit of my memory storage capacity from the hub as payment. So now you have more memory. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I think it's really cool and fascinating and fun.
Oh, I know another thing I thought of that just popped back into my head was the adaptive firewalls. I saw that as one of the don't tell me this one. Oh, talents in
Yes.
the game. And the first thing that made me think of, just because of the way we are as people, was some poor sentient robot all of a sudden getting like this virus shot at him to shut
Hmm.
him down. And basically now, like with the emotions being like, why did you do that to me?
Hmm.
I've done nothing to you. And
Yeah.
it's just, oh
Yeah.
man.
Using those cyber attacks is quite faux pas, like in a lot of places, because it's like, is do you have a right to go in and upload, uh, you know, a botnet assault on my brain? Like that's
Oh
kind of crappy, man. Like,
yeah,
um,
that's just like low a low blow, you know?
yeah,
It's
yeah. Um, Trying to think if there's anything else that we really need to go over. I think that's the gist of the game. Um, I've had a lot of fun running it. I've had a lot of fun writing it, and clearly, half the people I've run the game for have offered to write for the Kickstarter. So they like it. They like it enough that they want to be a part of it. So that's great.
I can see why. Like it's just this is I don't yeah. You're one of the first people to be able to shut me up and like with like how thinking of your game has like hit. And because usually I'm just like boo and like I'm just like I'm just every thought that I have has gone inward now of thinking of like, how would some poor, recently awoken robot react to like human interference? And because I can imagine knowing how, at least how humanity is today, and depending on what happened to humanity and how the events transpired, that there might be a little leery of humanity and see a human and be like, ooh, and then the humans are going to be like, oh, no, no, robot, no. And oh, man, it's, yeah, kudos to you for being able to like actually get me like not out of my element or off my game, but like to get me to like actually think.
Yeah, lost in ideas of what can spin out of this.
Yeah,
Like,
because like you said, everybody that you've played this with has been like, a lot of people have been like, oh, I'd love to write something. Like, I'm thinking of like 1,000 scenarios that I could come up with for this game now, which actually leads to, will there be any kind of third party? Will it tie into the world building where people can write third party content for Sentience or?
so eventually, I think that we might get there. The way it works with Modiphius is any rules that I create becomes part of the 2d20 system. So the value sacrifice and the using your emotions as stats now are open to anyone who wants to write for the Modiphius World Builders program to use. Um, Sentience itself is my IP, my trademark. So so Modiphius doesn't want any part of that. As far as creating, like if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I want to do this with Sentience," I would absolutely work with them about how we could make that happen. I know that we personally have 3 or 4 different projects that are lined up on the whiteboard, so to speak, that we would like to do with Sentience as soon as the Kickstarter is done as well.
I cannot wait. And like my brain is just going a mile a minute right now, which is awesome. But I'm like, man, just thinking of so many different things. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
the rules are very similar to Star Trek First Edition, Star Trek Adventures First Edition. In fact, we've even said multiple times that the games could probably be played together. I'm actually going to be filming a podcast next week at this time where we're talking about how does Sentience and Star Trek Adventures, how could we merge them and combine them and stuff. So that'll be really cool.
I could see several ways of doing that,
Mhm.
like instantly. Um, and I'd love to actually have you back on in the future because we didn't even get to touch upon Once Upon.
No, we did not.
And that's another one that I've got like just an array of talking points about because I'm like, hmm, after reading that, that it's like, because you take a whole different approach to the fairy tale genre of games with that, because, but we're going to save that for a later time, folks, and
Yeah,
keep you on
absolutely. I think
edge.
I would love to come back anytime to talk about it. I think that one of the things I'm starting to find myself as a writer is that I'm trying to bring more positive, upbeat, uplifting hope to role playing. Because
There's not
what
enough of it in the world right now, man.
well,
And
and I'm not opposed to role playing in a grim dark system, right? Like I would love to sit down and play a game of Morkborg tomorrow. However, I think that there's way too much of it in our industry. I think that there needs to be more uplifting and hopeful stuff in our industry. So I tried to do that with Sentience. Now, if you want to go dark with Sentience, you absolutely can. If that's you as a game master and that's what your play group enjoys, you can absolutely do that. And the same thing with Once Upon, but again, we'll discuss that next
yeah,
time.
but and kudos to you, man, for trying to bring hope because like I was just saying, there's just not enough of it this day and
Mhm.
age. It's like we need more.
Yep.
And yeah, like clap to you for. I don't want to be obnoxiously loud over my microphone
Of
and have
course.
it blow out somebody's ears. But Al, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. This is great.
I've had a blast talking about this, and I am going to grab one of my 4 steno books that I keep laying around the house and jot down about a billion ideas after we get done talking. And I try to start up a new gingerbread man.
Yeah. You gotta do a robot next.
Oh, don't give me any ideas. uh, and I'll start taking my printers apart and build one, and then we'll start to play, and you'll just be like, "What the hell is that walking
Uh,
behind you?"
I'll give you a teaser, by the way. One of the new roles that is going to be a stretch goal if we get there is a 3D printer robot.
Ooh, neato. So I'm guessing I'm going to throw a name out there, and don't keep your poker face of like a replicator, or something along those lines.
That is
So
exactly what it's called.
nice. Well, all right, my friend. And for the folks that did tune in, thank you so much. If you're watching us in the future and it's past the time that Sentience has kickstarted, I hope you backed it. And thank you so much again, Al. And folks out there, I always do this backwards. I will see you the next time. Have a good night. I can't do that. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, Dave.